Congratulations on your honorary doctorate here at the University of Arts, London. How does it feel?
Fantastic, actually. I was really genuinely surprised. I sort of think I gave a little yelp when I opened the letter because it was totally unexpected, and it is a real honour to receive something like that, especially from somewhere as prestigious as the LCF.
I was wondering, because your accomplishments have been so varied, whether you feel like social justice is a theme that has connected a lot of your work together.
Absolutely, yeah, no, that would be a succinct way of putting that together, and I guess more recently as well, social and environmental justice, but I do think the two are very much interlinked. But that came out of my experience of being in care myself, you see. So I was fostered and I was in children's homes, and I felt very strongly that I wanted to try and put something back into the system. What got me interested in everything that I do now, especially around the social justice, was seeing on television in grainy black and white, you know, in this huge box in the corner of the room that we used to have, was seeing scenes from apartheid, South Africa, civil rights in the USA, and I'm thinking, why are these black people being beaten up by white people who are police, who are supposed to be protecting us? And I couldn't sort of work that out. And so in a way that is a very sort of strong motif. So that thread, and as you say, in a way, because there were so few black people on television in drama, you know, that was the norm. So it didn't, in a way, it didn't bother me, because I would think, oh, well, that white man's playing a doctor, so maybe I could be a doctor because he seems to be liked by everybody, and everybody sort of worships the doctor. So it was more that kind of thinking.
At what point in your career did fashion come along? Was it something that was always there from the outset? Was it something that bubbled under the surface? Or?
So as I said to you, I was brought up in foster care and children's homes, but the idea of me in that time, and don't forget we are talking about 50s, 60s, saying, oh, I would like a career in fashion would be like fantastical. You know, you would just never, there's no point in even dreaming about doing such a thing. But then I got to know a fabulous group of women, including Dilys, and from the Centre for Sustainable Fashion, now Professor Williams. And there was this huge educational drive, and I said, look, I'm interested in the idea of maybe doing something in Parliament around fashion, because nobody's sort of talking about fashion at all. And it used to be kind of ignored, but now it's seen as making a prominent contribution to the economy and people's social and cultural life and so on and so forth. But there wasn't this kind of thought about, what is it doing to the environment? What happens when children are working, you know, 12 hours a day in a factory so that we can have cheap clothes? Is that right? I thought, okay, I can do something in Parliament that will enable parliamentarians and, more importantly, government and policymakers to understand what is actually going on here.
You seem to be very keen on bringing sort of young students and these policymakers together into the middle.
We brought them into debate, so that actually they've come into the House of Lords chamber and listened to some of these debates live. And I think it's quite important to do that, because it shows that there is a connection between what they're doing and what we're doing in Parliament. But I wanted it to be really creative and have its own distinctive look and feel to it. So it was fantastic in those early days to also have groups of young people thronging through our corridors, dressed in very creative ways, discussing all of this stuff, but with designers, you know, having apparel on rails in the room. We also had a swishing event, which was quite amazing, an exchange of clothing, which was really interesting. So that a lot of the older women in the House of Lords who brought in their clothes, fantastic clothes from the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, really good condition, really well looked after. And I saw a lot of young women snapping up these sort of, you know, Ferragamo suits and wonderful stiletto heels and all the rest of it. So it's a really good way of engaging both politicians and the public and saying, yeah, this is all great fun and we're swapping clothes and everything, but do you know about the landfill? Do you know about the amount of clothing that we don't wear? Are you aware of, you know, labour conditions? The The other side of having that group on ethics and sustainability in fashion is to say to particularly young people, please engage with politics. Don't leave it all to what you see as a distant political class. This is about you, it's about not only the course that you're doing, the things you're designing, it's about your life. Politics is about everything you do.
I wondered whether you had any advice for a fashion student, say working at the London College of Fashion, and we're talking about sort of sustainability and thinking about where your products come from. How vitally important do you think that is for a young fashion designer starting out to really be thinking about these issues?
I mean, my view would be that every single course that teaches fashion should have sustainability and ethics at its core. But I can't feel comfortable having my fun and enjoying my fashion if I'm thinking that somebody's died in order that I can have that a bit cheaper. So coming back to your central question, I say explore, excite, but always keep in mind, you know, that the end game is to produce something that people will love wearing and can wear with a sort of free conscience.
Do you feel like the battle is a difficult one?
It is a difficult one. The interesting thing to me with all of these things that happen today, we didn't always act in this way. So maybe we can look at some of the triggers that have induced us, you know, to try and get that fix. Because it is like a fix, isn't it? In a way, it's almost like being addicted to something, because it doesn't matter how many cheap pairs of jeans or t-shirts you buy, there's always going to be another pair that you want to buy next week or next month or next payday or whatever. So we need to try and sort of see what it is that's triggering people to do that. The psychology is really important, I think. So what is triggering people to do that? What kind of insecurities are being played on that induce people to do that? And how can we introduce other triggers that have a different result?